How's everybody doing, and welcome to the fish room. In today's video we're going to go over some guppy breeding tips. I have a few things I'm doing now, some things I'm changing, and I want to just kind of share with you guys. This will be a video on how to breed your guppies, how to prevent the adults from eating all the babies as soon as they're born. So let's go ahead and take a look. To update you guys on what's currently going on, I had a 10-gallon tank here. I obviously still do. I filled it with all this acrylic yarn you see in this tank. This tank is 100% filled with acrylic yarn. For you guys that have been following the channel, you know I like to use that to grow beneficial bacteria and more importantly, a great hiding place for fry. So what I did here, I had these two tanks were empty for a week or so. They have cycled sponge filters in both of them, but there was brand new water, just filled the tank up right from the tap and dechlorinated it. And they were ready for fish. For this tank over here on the right, I initially had all of that acrylic yarn in there. I just moved it maybe 5 minutes ago, so I stirred the tank up a little bit. But I want to update you guys on what's going on. So basically what this is, it's a drop tank. So you have a tank with no other fish. It has a cycled filter. The water's heated. It has all of your hiding places. So what you'll do, you can put a pair of guppies in there. Or what I did is I found a pregnant female that was ready to have babies any day, and I would put them into the tank. I've done this in the past. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but I usually don't have enough of the hiding places. So as you can see, this tank is completely filled. There's so many nooks and crannies for the adults to swim around the tank, and also for all the babies to swim within all of the acrylic yarn. You can ignore all the writing on the tank. This needs to be scratched off. It's an older tank where I had a breeding pair in there. But just want you to see up close how there's really nowhere in the tank that there's dead space. Everywhere there's hiding places, and there's still some room for the parents to swim above and below around all of the acrylic yarn. We're about to take a look at the tank next to it, which if you could tell, there were some babies in there. But this is the tank I initially pulled the female from. I know she's in here. I just saw her a second ago. This is her down here. So she's quite large. She just had babies like last week and she still looks pretty fat. Guppies, once they're pregnant, are pretty much constantly pregnant. They're always having babies every 28 days, every month or so. But she's got some nice color in her. She just had a bunch of babies. We're going to go check them out, but I wanted to show you the female. Show you guys the female that all the babies are coming from, which is her right there. Here's an above view. You can see the fry swimming around here. I haven't attempted to count these guys, but there's easily over 20 guppies in this tank. And these guys have already put on some good size. Once the female had the babies, I saw one appear late at night, and the next morning I could see another 10 or so throughout the tank, and there were plenty that I could not see because they were hiding within all the yarn. So what I did was I caught the female out as soon as I spotted some babies, and I moved her back to the community tank, and now I have 20 or so babies in here. They're about a week old, and whenever you have these guppies growing out in a tank without any adults, you'll see how much more active they are because they're not constantly hiding. They get to actually explore and enjoy the tank. You'll see them schooling up from time to time, and they'll eat just so much more food because they're not hiding. The parents aren't taking the food source away from them. So I've been feeding these guys morning and night just some crushed up guppy flake food, and they're doing pretty well. I'll turn a flashlight on, maybe we can see them a little bit better, maybe not, but they're doing very well. And the tank is stirred up because I just went ahead and pulled out all that hiding places, because what we're going to do is we're going to restart this cycle, and we're going to put another female in the tank next to us. My initial plans were to let the female have her babies, pull her out, let these guys grow up till they're big enough to sex, males and females. Then I can separate them into a male and female tank, maybe pick out some future pairs and go from there. But I have some more that are ready to go. Instead of trying to catch these babies out and then put a new pregnant female in the tank, I decided just to remove the acrylic yarn. That way I'm not worried about having any babies left in the tank, because if I went in through with a net and tried to catch these guys out with the yarn still in there, the odds of me catching them all are slim to none. Even if I did that and I put a new female in there to have babies, I would still be able to tell these guys are different because they're a lot larger than the other babies, so I could separate them along the way, along with their color would be different. But I thought it'd be easier just to move the acrylic yarn to a new tank because I had an open tank, and we can kind of restart this process. And I wanted to share with you guys just how I'm doing this and a little extra breeding tip for guppies. There is a chance there could be some frying this tank over here. Just move me over to the left where I have all this acrylic yarn. I pulled it from the tank where we just looked at the babies. There's a chance some may have got stuck in there. If I need to separate them later on, if I spot some babies in here that are a little bit larger than the rest, or just a few random babies, I can catch them out and put them back, which is not a big deal, but I'm pretty sure I got all the yarn out of the tank without picking up any of the babies. But now we're going to go ahead and look at a tank where I have a couple females that are going to have babies any day now, and we're going to move into this tank, and I'm going to keep you guys updated on it from today or the day I upload this video. Whenever they have babies, we can take a look at them and kind of just move forward. I want to do a series on this of the progress of the guppies growing up, and kind of just little tricks along the way. Obviously there's many ways to breed guppies. You can just put them in a tank with next to no hiding places and they can have babies and do well. And then you have tanks with lots of hiding places and the parents always seem to eat them, or they get maybe sucked up into the filter or something if you don't have any covers on them. But this is just something to help you guys out. I always think it's fascinating to look at some baby fish and some tips and different ways to breed stuff. I've bred guppies in 100 different setups. So let's go ahead and look at some of the females. We're going to move into this tank. We're actually just going to pick one of them, but let's go ahead and take a look. So this is a tank I've shown before. It is a 55-gallon tank. It has 2 sponge filters running, some fake plants, some yarn, and this moss is growing in really well on top of that. So I'm enjoying this tank. I would like to maybe change it out to a gravel tank and moss only and see if I can get this thick moss to grow everywhere. It's a great food source for the babies and a hiding place, and it's just natural. It looks a lot better. And as you can see, I do have some plecos in the back. I like to grow plecos out in this tank. I don't usually breed them in here. I have just some babies I'm growing out for future pairs. But the plecos, a little bit of a side note, sometimes they get caught in that acrylic yarn. Their bristles get kind of caught up in it, and I'll have to go through and pull them out. Or sometimes, very rarely, but out of every couple hundred plecos, I might lose one to getting stuck in that and passing away, which is a real shame, especially whenever it's a fish that you specifically are trying to grow out. So I think the moss is better, that the plecos won't get caught in it, but the guppies don't really matter. But as you can see, I have some adults in here and tons of babies. There's even a brand new baby pleco in there, so I guess we might have some adults in here after all. I usually throw a pair or two in every tank, and with all this hiding underneath, and that guy's brand new, so I'll make sure I give a heavy feeding tonight with some algae wafers for the plecos. Kind of getting sidetracked. They just breed in those little flower pots, but I haven't seen any adults in this tank. I kind of forgot I had a pair in there, but I think there might be some super reds, so that's actually exciting. There's always a chance that some of the plecos I've been growing out finally get to that age where they can breed, and they'll breed under all of that acrylic yarn because it's so dense, or in those flower pots. But let's get back to the guppies, guys. So as you can see, most of the females, all the females in here are pregnant, but there's a few exceptional ones that are very large. They're about to have babies any day now. This one here is looking pretty big. Actually, all these guys are. That female, absolutely, she's getting kind of squared off in her belly. Whenever they're front, kind of under their mouth, see if I can point. So right here up front, underneath where their eyeball is, once their belly actually starts to kind of get boxy, her absolutely, that's when they're just about to have their babies. They can be fat and big, but once their belly actually, doesn't always happen, they usually happen before this, but especially whenever their stomach gets kind of like a square, you'll see it happens within like 24 hours before they have their babies typically. The front of their chest almost gets like a right angle. It's like a square box. It only happens usually in your large mature females, but you can kind of tell in her underneath her head where her belly is just, she's just enormous, but it's actually getting kind of boxy, not just big, fat, and round. They kind of square off, and that's a big telltale sign that they're about to have babies. But looking at all these guys, obviously there's lots of babies and they're still having babies, but you can tell some of the babies are getting larger in this tank. They're probably a month, 2 months old. So that means we're about to get some brand new fry. So we're gonna go through here. I'm gonna select my favorite yellow half black female that looks the most pregnant, that she's about to have babies. And I think it might be this one here. She's got good body shape, real big tail, some nice yellow to her. Either two of those would work, but the one to the left has a little bit more black in her body. So obviously the males will be nicer than the females, but she's looking pretty good. So all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna catch her out. I'm gonna move her down to this tank here. I have some of my DIY lids I'll put on top. There's one over here on the side. You just kind of cut these to size. They're like greenhouse siding. You can buy them at Home Depot or Lowe's. Typically Lowe's, Home Depots don't always have them. I just cut it. You buy it like a 4 foot by 8 foot sheet. You cut it up, and I'll cover this entire tank so there's no chance of the female jumping out. You'll keep a close eye on this tank. Feed some crushed up flake food, very small amounts, morning and night until you spot some babies. Once you do, you'll catch that female out. You can feed a little bit more crushed up flake food depending on how many babies are in there. And that's pretty much it, guys. You just keep repeating that process of catching the pregnant females out, putting them into a drop tank, letting them have babies, and then putting them back in the tank. If you wait long enough and they're very close to having their babies, they shouldn't be in this tank for more than a week. Sometimes it can be longer, but if you do that, they're probably already had their babies if they were really fat, and they'll eat them. Or sometimes they'll absorb their babies and they won't have them at all from stress, which is why I don't really like this drop method. This is why I wouldn't throw these fish into a 5-gallon bucket or a small breeder tank or like a hang-on breeder. Usually I think the fish just get too stressed out. They don't eat. They just get really lethargic and just, I don't know, I just don't have good luck with it. But I did this with my last female in this tank with all the acrylic yarn, and I got tons of nice babies in there, which doesn't always work, which is why I like to colony breed and let them have their babies in the tank. But after seeing these guys do so well, I'm willing to try it again. Some females will handle it better than others, but I think having a large enough tank, a 10-gallon tank with lots of hiding places, a cycled sponge filter, it's going to be less stressful on the fish, and they just do a little bit better. So kind of testing it out. We're going to keep doing this. There's a lot of things that make sense on paper, but they don't work until you actually try them and see your results. So that's why I'm kind of showing you guys this. I've tried this before with not as much success, and this is really working for me when I use this much acrylic yarn, a crazy amount of acrylic yarn, and this is less than $10 of acrylic yarn. I've had it for years, and it has a lot of beneficial bacteria. But thank you guys for watching. Hopefully that all made sense. It wasn't boring. I think it's pretty cool, but trying to stay updated in the fish room, share some stuff with you guys. We're gonna go ahead. I'll catch that female out, toss her in this tank, and just stay updated for more videos, guys. If you like this video, please like it. If you want to see more of the fish room, please go below, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and you'll get more videos in the fish room. I like reading you guys' comments and answering back, so go ahead and comment below and let me know what you guys want to see next. Definitely take recommendations on videos. If there's something you guys want to see or questions you want me to answer, I absolutely will. Thanks again for watching, guys. Stay tuned for more videos, and I will talk to you guys next time.